He's taught and/or teaches at Erie Community College, St. Bonaventure University, Niagara University, Canisius College, Medaille College, Susquehanna University, University of Bridgeport, and Penn State. You need to teach me about how you do these things simultaneously after this talk. He's worked as either actor, playwright, director at Torn Space Theater, Shakespeare in Delaware Park, Theater of Youth, Alleyway Theater, Road Less Traveled, among many others. He will be directing Shakespeare's King John at the New Phoenix Theater in spring of 2019. Please welcome Larry Smith.
I've been asked to speak because I know nothing about buildings, design, engineering, or how to hammer in a nail. But I do know that the word theater comes from the Greek word theatron. So I'm going to talk a lot about different buildings that all fall under the word theater. Up here is the Greek theatron. You'll see number one, which is where the people would actually sit, is the actual theatron, which meant seeing place. This right here is a good example of how the Greeks would build the theaters into hillsides or mountains. That circular area in the middle was called the orchestra, which meant dancing place. To this day, we still call first level of theaters orchestras. You also had what was called a skene, which is Greek for tent. Eventually they made it out of other things than canvas or cloth. And now you have the Theater of Epidaurus, also a Greek theater, which could seat about 13,000 people right there. So you had the skene. In front of the skene, you see a ramp called the proskene, from which we get the word proscenium, which I'll also talk about in a few minutes because we have one right here in the theater. Pretty big place. How could you possibly be heard? I have absolutely no idea. But one thing they would do is they put little megaphones inside their masks. The masks, of course, were called persona. To this day, the image that you are trying to project to other people is known as your persona. So people would wear these things. The actors, who were called hypocrites, that is Greek for actor right there. Perhaps even the very first actor. The very first actor was named Thespis. To this day, theater people are called thespians. This is not a Greek theater. This is a Roman theater. About 4 centuries after the Greeks, the Romans would use old Greek theaters, or they would build their own theaters, which were freestanding structures, not built into the sides of hills. This is the example of an outside of one. I guess what you would call, in your architecture words, facade. Is that right? It looks a little bit like old Ebbets Field, in fact, a little bit right there, but you can see it's a freestanding structure. Now, what the Romans would do if they wanted to build a big amphitheater is they would take 2 of their theaters, like this, and they would put them together and call it maybe a Colosseum if it were big enough. They would get rid of all the stuff in the middle and put the 2 theaters like this. If you put them like this, it doesn't work. You gotta do that, okay? So those were the Romans right there. And of course, the people would sit there and they were known as the audientia, from which we get the word audience. Oh, we're moving ahead a few centuries, like 15 or so. This is William Shakespeare's Globe, a reconstruction of Shakespeare's Globe in London, England. This would be basically theater in the round, except not so much theater in the round, but a round theater called the wooden O. The actual theater format would have been called a 3/4 thrust, which I'll also talk about. You notice it has multiple levels there. So does this one. Now we're moving into the 18th century. Right here you have your galleries on the side. Okay? These theaters, sort of opera house-like, were known for their very deep stages, which went way the heck back. And there's no way you could see if you were sitting in the galleries over here. So galleries became places where you put people to be seen as much as for them to see the show. If you had a president named Abraham Lincoln, you might put him in the gallery seat right here. This is Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. 3-level theater, orchestra, mezzanine, balcony. It has a minor thrust going out into the house right there. John Wilkes Booth did his bad business there. He had a brother, however, named Edwin Booth, who has a theater named after him on Broadway, the Booth Theater. This is your basic proscenium theater, the kind that most of us would be familiar with. Proscenium, remember that word proskene before from the Greeks? That's the proscenium right there. We have a proscenium in this building. Right there is your basic proscenium with the curtain, or the red drop curtain, which can either be opened that way or that way. This is your Kleinhans Music Hall. Basically a proscenium theater. However, you'll notice that they don't have any kind of curtain or anything like that. They don't have a rigging system above them for lights. They basically turn the lights on the stage and turn the lights off out there, and you sit there and listen. And that's okay, because it's Kleinhans Music Hall. But it is essentially what we would call a proscenium theater, as opposed to a three-quarter thrust theater, which would have seating on 3 out of 4 sides. That's where they got the three-quarter thrust idea. It's passe. We were taught three-quarter thrust arena, but we've dropped the arena for the most part, even though we used to have a studio arena theater in Buffalo that's now 710 Main. It looks somewhat like this with the audience on all 3 of the sides. Very similar, really, to the way the Greeks did it with their orchestra right in the middle there. That's just one of the formats that we would use for theater. Another one might be theater in the round, also called arena seating, which means you got actors, you have audience all around you. The Buffalo Sabres used to play at HSBC Arena because they had seating on all sides there. They've changed the name for some reason, I don't know. It doesn't even have to be a circle. If you go to the Irish Classical Theater, you would go to theater in the square because it's a square, but it's still theater in the round. Love black box theaters. Black box theaters, you can use all kinds of reconfigurations in that. A guy I know named Dan Shanahan, he has a proscenium theater, which we happen to be in, but I've seen him move it all over the place and turn it into a black box. These things can be struck, moved to the side, anywhere, kind of like this. This, again, is your basic black box theater with a very deep thrust. It's set up as a three-quarter thrust arena stage, but you can do pretty much anything. You can put seats on the other side, make it around. You can move all the seats here like this is, and make it a basic old-fashioned proscenium theater. You'll notice the ratings above it for lights and for different technical uses. Or you want to use a found space. Dan is good at found spaces, so is Saul Elkin. This is St. Shakespeare in Delaware Park. I've acted there, I don't know, 12 or 13 times since it's not important how long ago it was. Basically, we use it as a proscenium. If, however, you get people on the sides, then you adjust a little bit and you turn it into a three-quarter thrust. Speaking of coming full circle, we kind of went full circle to the amphitheater, Shakespeare in the Park, similar to the Greeks. This right here is where we are. That's Torrance Space. Torrance Space, and I have acted here twice, people. Okay, I've been killed on this stage, okay? And I guess that's it. Thank you very much.